I looked at her and I said, Mum, I want you to try this one yourself. She goes, oh, okay. So she walks away, she sits down, and she writes, and she writes, and she writes. And finally, 3 days later, she finishes, and she comes over, and she shows me what she's written. And I read it, and I basically started crying. It was beautiful. Mum had written a 500-word story in English called My Life. And I said, Mum, you've got to hand this in to your teacher. The next day, she goes to class, she hands it in to her teacher. 2 days after that, she comes over, all excited, going, Khoa, 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 Khoa. I said, Mum, what is it? And she gives me her story, and on it, the teacher had written 10 out of 10. And I said, Mum, that's brilliant. And in English, she looks at me and she goes, Khoa, now I know why you're a good writer. And I said, why, Mum? And she goes, because I'm a good writer. Look. After high school, I didn't know what it was, but I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Deep inside, I didn't think I was smart enough to be a doctor, skilled enough to be a dentist, dedicated enough to be an engineer. So for a while, I studied law. But it was funny that law wasn't for me. I grew up loving drama and loving performing. So one day, I decided to leave law behind to pursue a career in film and in theatre. When I first began, everyone said I was mad. They said, Khoa, no one leaves law after a few years of studying. Do something like film and theatre, especially if you come from a Vietnamese background. But I didn't listen. I thought I'd go and I'd try it anyway, and I'd focus on what I had. And in the first few months, I actually landed my first role in this film called The Diamond of Jeru, opposite an actor named Billy Zane. You know, the bad guy from Titanic? Well, I got to play the villain in this film, and I still remember showing up on set on the first day, and the director's assistant, she puts me with all the extras. And about 5 minutes later, she goes, where's our villain? He should be here by now. And I kind of slowly put up my hand, and she comes over. She looks at me and she goes, you're the villain? Who's going to be scared of you? But it's an amazing experience. I spent 2 months on the Gold Coast, living the actor's life, sharing a trailer with Billy Zane and sharing Titanic stories with him. In fact, they put me up in his massive hotel on the Gold Coast. My hotel room was so big that I actually took photos of it, and I sent them home to my mum. So my mum's got no idea who on earth Billy Zane is, but a big fat hotel room, now that impressed her. A few months later, I heard that SBS were making a new series of films, and they were calling for new ideas. I thought to myself, I've never written a film before in my life, but I've lived a really interesting life. I've got lots of ideas. So one day I actually sat down, I wrote a 2-page story idea, and I sent it in to SBS. Out of 100 proposals, they chose 4 to turn into half-hour dramas, and ours was one of them. I was